How are you? How's it going?
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Where do you be?
The House Committee on Oversight will come to order. Would clerk please take attendance? Chair DeBoyer. Here. Representatives Beerline.
Meerman, Paquette, Cara, Bruck, Green, Regas, Shriver, Wolford, Miller, Pahutsky, Conlon, McDonald, Menser, Cerniglu, Wagella. Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Representative Regas moves to approve the minutes of the June 3rd meeting. Hearing no.
Today we have a presentation from Secretary of State Jocelyne Benson on the Michigan Transparency Network. This will be a follow-up presentation from our May 20th hearing to learn more on the progress of Mitten. I believe she's going to be joined by Liz Thomas, Digital Solutions Division, and Abby Diaz, Chief Administrative Officer from Tyler. Is that true? Okay. Thank you. Begin when you're ready.
Thank you. We got it? All right. Well, before we start, I just want to start by saying two things. First, I want to thank you for inviting me here today and for your increased oversight of our department. I believe government works best when we can be partners, and I greatly appreciate your interest level in our department because it's going to make us better. So thank you. As you'll see in the slides ahead, and as I know many of you have experienced over the last month, our department is making a great deal of progress in working to ensure that the Michigan Transparency Network is on its way to being a modern, user-friendly, and cost-effective program that will enable Michiganders to have access to information on who is influencing your decisions, and all of you as users to be able to provide that information with ease, accuracy, and timeliness. The other thing I just want to acknowledge is the environment that we're in right now. We've all experienced the challenges and trauma of a lot of political attacks over the last several weeks. And I know that some of you on this committee have been targets of personal threats that have been directed at you and your families. So I hope all of you and your families are safe. And my department stands ready to work with every lawmaker and leader in this state to help ensure we are all doing everything we can to ensure your safety. The last thing I just want to say at the outset is that I do believe in the importance of fair bipartisan oversight. And I believe we should all be committed to transparency on behalf of the people that we serve. And so to that end, I have appreciated the members of this committee who have asked thoughtful questions and, rooted in your own experience and background, sought to provide helpful feedback and worked with us to ensure that we can ultimately have an online portal that is an upgrade over the antiquated system I inherited and delivers transparency, accessibility, and clarity for Michigan voters. So I want to start again on this first slide, thank you, by being clear about something. I don't believe in kicking cans down the road for someone else to deal with. I lead with a sense of urgency and a commitment to get things done, even if it's hard. I don't believe any of us were sent here to Lansing to just maintain a mediocre status quo. I believe we were all sent here by the voters to make things better. So that means we need to be willing to tackle big, complicated systems and make necessary improvements that move Michigan into the modern era and make government work better for everyone. We've been doing that in our department over the last several years, and this does mean there are sometimes bumps in the road and things don't go as smoothly as I would have liked. Transformational change does not happen easily. It is the harder path. But just because things are hard and difficult at first doesn't mean we run away or sit on our hands and do nothing. For example, when I was first elected, it was not possible for eligible Michigan citizens to register to vote online. So the first year of my first term, we worked with DTMV to build and then launch the state's first online voter registration system through the Michigan Voter Information Center. This system now processes tens of thousands of voter registration updates every year. This helps us increase the accuracy of our voter rolls more and make it more efficient and secure than it was before. Another example is cars. When I was first elected, wait times in the Secretary of State branch offices were abysmal. My administration overhauled Michigan's entire motor vehicle data system, modernizing it so that Michigan residents could get more things done online or easily schedule their branch visits ahead of time. This system, known as CARS, has helped us eliminate those unacceptable wait times and make things easier for every one of your constituents. And finally, when Michigan voters overwhelmingly amended our Constitution in 2022, they called on us to enable them to vote early before every statewide election. And so we built a system that enabled that to happen and launched the state's first ever early voting e-poll book platform. We developed this software with feedback from clerks across the state, and in doing so, built a system that made early voting a secure, smooth, and convenient experience for the 1.2 million Michiganders who used it in 2024. I share all this with you to add context to today's discussion. At any given time, the Michigan Department of State is successfully overhauling antiquated systems and modernizing state government in a way that saves people time, saves the state money, and makes people's lives easier. And this is also what is actually happening with the Michigan Transparency Network. Now, every Secretary of State before me knew that our campaign finance system was old and outdated and hard to use. It needed an overhaul. the data was literally saved onto a floppy disk. And just like our driver's license data was saved on microfiche when I first took office, we had to upgrade that system, and we're upgrading this system. And here's the thing. The archaic way of doing things ultimately costs the state more money to maintain if we don't roll up our sleeves and try to fix it. Yes, we experienced unanticipated setbacks in the short term, and like all of you, I'm not happy about that either. But I'm also proud of my team for fighting through these difficult moments and challenges with one goal: to replace archaic, broken systems in a way that is cost-efficient, accessible, accurate, transparent, and easy to use. So with that context, I want to talk about MERTS specifically. Now, as you know, MERTS was an old and outdated system. It was first implemented a quarter of a century ago, the year 2000. Just to put that into context, when MERTS was implemented, Representative Farhat was 4 months old, and Representative Linting wasn't even born yet. For 25 years, every Secretary of State heard complaints about MERTS. It was difficult to use. You lost data every time you changed computers. And by the way, you could only use certain computers with it. Some folks told me they'd have to buy specific computers just to be able to file their campaign reports. So the complexity and the outdated nature of this data made it also extremely difficult to transfer it to a new and better system. One of the many problems with MERTS is that it never validated data, so that the old records had different spellings of the same person's name, various fields that would contain multiple pieces of data and information, and the formatting of the system's 24 million records created complex computer science problems that are difficult to solve efficiently, quickly, and at scale. Our new system is not just a website application, it's a multi-user group case management system with a Google-like search engine attached. And what this new system is doing is bringing campaign finance data that previously lived in 3 different systems together into one shared database. That will enable more searchable fields, like the ability to search across committees that share a common treasurer or a mailing address. The combination of these data sources will ultimately allow users to get a more rounded picture of campaign finance disclosures and the flow of money into Michigan politics. But it does mean we are taking on a hard and complex project. Our vendor's initial planning of the project did not sufficiently appreciate or measure the risk of combining all of these data sources across 25 years of ancient data. And this is what led to the delays and the performance issues we have experienced at launch. And that is what our team has meticulously, carefully worked together on every single day to fix. So I know a lot of you have asked, why didn't you just, when you saw these problems happen, go back to MERTS once these problems arose? I asked that question too. Why don't we just keep the old system going until the wheels fall off, right? So the answer is this. Our contract to maintain MERTS was up, and I did not want to invest additional taxpayer dollars in a dying, outdated system. The contract to maintain MERTS expired in 2024, after the state exercised its last available contract extension. That MERTS contract cost $18 million over 9 years. That is an average maintenance cost, again, that's just to keep it up and running, of $1.8 million per year, just to keep that old thing going. In contrast, the state's contract to build, upgrade, modernize, and maintain the Michigan Transparency Network is $9 million over the next 5 years. And I want to be clear, that doesn't mean we've already paid $9 million to Tyler Technologies. That is the 5-year contract total. So that means the annual cost to maintain Mitten, including the cost of building out the new system, modernizing it, and upgrading all of that old data that started on a floppy disk, and continuing to maintain it and improve it for the next 5 years, is $1.2 million per year. So that means Mitten, a modern new system, is also saving taxpayer dollars. And our vendor will refund the state for any downtime we have experienced over the last several months and throughout this transition. Currently, that refund stands at $166,000. So I really want to thank Tyler Technologies for their all-hands-on-deck approach. As soon as this product encountered unexpected issues, they have been consistently working with us at the highest levels to move things forward. We all want this to succeed. And I have also made it clear that the state will pay only when we have a system that is functioning as expected and contracted. So with that, I want to talk about how the state is working with Tyler Technologies to improve the system. So in the last several months, we've had a lot of tough conversations with our team about how we got here, the issues, the snafus, and how we would move forward. And that's again why I wanted to start by thanking you all, because you've helped us get better. And I want you to know how proud I am of every single one of the members of our team who have stepped up in extraordinary ways, including across our department, sometimes working till 11 o'clock at night, then getting up at 8 a.m. the next morning to continue the work again, including on weekends, because like me, they share a dedication and commitment to getting this right. So I'm personally ensuring that we continue to do this in the months ahead. We are open to making continued improvements, not just to the system, but to our own internal testing and other processes. My predecessor, Candace Miller, once told me to never forget that the biggest room is the room for improvement, and we have lived that every day during my administration. We've conducted additional rounds of user research, added more support from various DTMB functions, and increased our level and layers of review for any go-live decisions to a meticulous level. I specifically want to thank my Chief of Staff, Tina Anderson, for overseeing not just the improvement of this project, but the improvement of how we do projects overall, ensuring that we will be able to continue to do transformational things in this office with even smoother transitions in the future. We're also working with Tyler Technologies on a corrective action plan to ensure we have agreed upon contract enforceable plans moving forward for our work with them. And finally, we've revamped our go-live approval process to ensure before anything goes live, we catch and manage any issues or risks as we launch any new technology increases. So now I want to talk about those new technology releases that we've gone through over these last several weeks, and then talk about what we're going to be going through in the weeks ahead. The specific improvements we've made since May include significant software fixes and search functions across the Michigan Transparency Network. Those fixes went live on May 31st and June 17th, and we have a third round of significant upgrades planned for July 12th. These specific fixes include three things. Number one, updating the personal financial disclosure module to be consistent with the newly enacted bills that alter the filing methods and also change the required content disclosures. Number two, improving the public search performance of our system, resolving many of the frustrating system timeouts that a lot of users experienced earlier this year. And three, ensuring that the committee balances update properly with new filings and reports. We've also proactively reached out to various Mitten users to incorporate their feedback going live with these improvements and other things that we will be doing to address their specific problems and needs. We're going to continue that proactive work with our stakeholders who use these systems the most, because one thing we have learned is how important it is ahead of time to ensure all of that engagement is happening, and then ensure as a result we're making the most user-friendly system possible. I don't see this as a static thing. We are going to consistently work to continuously improve this system, just as we have with all of the systems that we have overhauled throughout my tenure at this department. So with the personal financial disclosure piece specifically, I'm happy to report that the June 13th personal financial disclosure deadline went smoothly. Thank you to the committee members who submitted their filings via the Mitten module. This makes it easier for the public to search and have access to information about what you're filing. I hope your experience was as smooth as my own. I was able to submit my filing without issue back in May in 10 minutes. Overall, we received 47 personal financial disclosures via the Mitten module and 112 via emailed PDF forms. For this deadline, we also significantly increased our technical support for all filers. That includes training videos that are available on our website 24/7, after-hours phone support from our staff at the Bureau of Elections, and we also, as you may have noticed, significantly increased the email communication with filers so that you all and others were fully aware of all of the deadlines and the legal requirements and options under the new law, and also to know that we were there to help at any step of the way navigate the challenges with this new system. Because we get it, this is a new thing for all users, and with that, there's going to be challenges. We're also able to resolve a handful of issues working one-on-one with filers to ensure everyone could file by the deadline. So now I want to walk through the improvements we've made that we have planned for our July 12th release. First, we will implement a campaign finance filing summary report, a useful tool for filers, journalists, and members of the public. For filings that are created in Mitten in July, for the July report, users will be able to click on public search results to see details of an individual filing, including a summary page and filing schedules for each. We will also implement several improvements for filers. In the advance of upcoming finance deadlines, we felt this was critical to do in this moment. So these include the ability to pay committee and lobby fees by credit card, and also improvements to the lobby registration process. Finally, the July 12th release will include improvements to the public search function, such as users will be able to search cumulative contributions using the campaign finance search function, and it will be easier to scroll through public search results and download data into spreadsheets. In this July 12th release, we will also launch a campaign filing summary report, one of the most requested features from media and other stakeholders. This report will allow users to click on an individual filing search result and see all details for that filing, similar to the filing review in MERS. This summary for campaign finance reports that are filed in Mitten will be available in July, and filing summaries that are older and migrated in from MERS are currently slated for release later this summer. The final thing I want to talk about is our vision for the future. I want to make sure this system is better than MERS in every metric possible. At the end of the day, we are working to build a campaign finance search engine that will not only save the state money, it will be easier for everyone to use and easier for the public to understand. MERS was not that. Our goal and my vision for the future is a smooth disclosure experience for filers and a transparent tool for the public to use. We will do that by ensuring data is accessible, complete, and accurate so the people of Michigan know who is influencing the decisions their leaders in government are making at any given time. And I think we can all agree that you shouldn't need a master's degree in campaign finance to find information and understand what it means. Right now, we're doing product mapping and improvement for releases in August and October of this year and into 2026. And we want to work with you on all of that. In this moment, we also want to build a system that works for all of you and incorporate your ideas, concerns, and feedback as we collectively envision the evolution of this portal. We have established a path and processes that enable a workable, transparent, and cost-efficient system, and also a process for continuing to improve it in the months and years ahead. This is critical as technology changes, as needs increase, and as the laws perhaps evolve and change, for us to be able to consistently stay up with the times. I know we're going to get there, and when all is said and done, Michiganders will have a modern, easy-to-use, and transparent way to track the use of money and the influence of money in the political arena. Now I'm happy to take any questions you have. Thanks.
Thank you, Secretary Benson. Just really quick, when the contract was awarded to Tyler Technologies, were you aware of either their acquisition of the MERS system or their intent to acquire the MERS system? Were you aware of that?
Personally, I delegated the process of selecting the vendor, as we typically do in a typical vendor process, to a committee, and I believe we've given you the information of the names of people on the committee. So I think that question is best appropriate for them. We were going through a process that worked well, and we worked with a vendor, Tyler Technologies, that has a history of working well with the state of Michigan. So it's not, and would not be surprising to me that they work on MERS as well.
So you were not aware that Tyler either had acquired or had the intention of acquiring the MERS system?
That wouldn't be something that would typically be brought to the granular level of my decision making.
Well, I think, yeah, but we're talking about, tens of millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So you made a position that the reason we did not renew with MERS was because of the operational cost that it would have incurred, along with the additional costs that we would have with the new Mitten software. But the dilemma that I see is when you have a failure to this degree on a software that, by the way, the old system is owned by the vendor you're working with, I would say that they would have a lot of discretion to not be charging you that fee to maintain the MERS system. And by your answer, you just said to me that that was not even a relevant conversation that would have, on a granular level, made back to you.
Well, yeah,
Is that true?
That's helpful feedback. I think from my standpoint, we looked at two things. The cost of maintaining the MERS system, which again, under that contract, would have been $1.8 million per year. and the opportunity to modernize into a new system, which frankly, in the first year of my administration, I expressed we wanted to do. We really couldn't begin that process until 2024 when the existing contract ran through. And then at that point, we put out a traditional RFP process for ensuring that we collected information from potential vendors. And Tyler Technology has a history of working on a number of projects with the state of Michigan. And there's every reason why we should.
Well, okay, but that really doesn't answer the question. Maybe Tyler Technologies can answer the question. Did they disclose to the Secretary of State's office that they were acquiring the MERT system?
I can answer that question. Thank you, Chair. So the Tyler Technologies acquired Michigan Interactive, which is the company that we initially contracted with MERTS. That happened in 2021.
It closed in April of 2021.
Oh,
And so for the procurement process, our bid for the new mitten system was an open competitive bid. There were no limitations on what companies could apply for that, including the company that was already on contract for MERTS.
so the answer is that they did not disclose to you.
They did,
They did disclose to you.
yes, correct.
But yet we still went down the path that it would have cost us 1.2 million, 1.8 million per year
Maintaining the old
to maintain the
system
MERT
costs
system.
$1.8 million a year. Maintaining the new system will cost $1.2 million a year.
And the 1.8 million is paid to the MERTS entity.
As you can imagine, technology from the year 2000 is more costly to maintain than technology from today. So that was the cost for maintaining a really outdated system. That's part of the reason we wanted to push forward and build a new system to save Michigan taxpayers money.
So we've been out for 15 months, correct? It's been rolled out for 15 months.
It launched in January of 2025.
The disclosure or the entire mid?
So we launched a interim system. We had to launch a system in 4 months between the time when the laws were passed for personal financial disclosure.
But
and
the
April.
entirety of the system, the contract, the execution, did lobbyists not have to file last year?
Lobbyists filed earlier this year. The new mint system for every module except for personal financial disclosure was launched in 2025.
So could Tyler Technologies have stood MERTS back up?
From a technical perspective, yes.
Could you have waived the fee?
Which fee?
You could not have waived the fee.
Yeah, which fee, I guess, is it?
The maintenance fee. Do we not pay a maintenance fee? We pay
For
maintenance fee.
MERTS, but that contract had expired.
They own MERTS. Tyler Technology owns MERTS.
Correct.
But we're
Are you
told that
saying
we
we can
didn't,
operate without a contract?
excuse me, we are told that we didn't maintain MERTS because of the cost.
The
But
contract.
that's our cost internally, or that's operational contract cost?
It's our contracted.
Contract costs. You could not have waived that fee in light of the fact that your system that you've developed doesn't work.
There's a lot to unpack in that question.
There is.
The mitten system does work. There is room for improvement, and as we've said, we've been standing shoulder to shoulder with the Secretary's team to continue to deliver the enhancements and additional features she outlined to you. But as you saw, filings are occurring in the system. We would not have waived fees writ large and indefinitely on the old MERT system because there are costs to maintaining that system. We have a dedicated on-site team that was in charge of operating that system. That said, when there was an overlap between when Mitten was intended to go live and MERTS was still being in operational use because of some of the delays you've heard about, we waived portions of the MERTS fee. So we've been working with the Secretary's office to accommodate the variables that have arisen over the course of time, including financial variables.
So I just want to make sure that, is the definition of operational that some people can file some stuff? Because on last account, I have 18 or 19 deficiencies as of yesterday that you can't do on the MERT system.
So I just want to.
So is that the definition? Hold on, it said it worked. The word was it worked. Is that the definition of it worked?
So any software system at any given time has a product roadmap for fixing known issues. Ours does too.
But the people that are penalized right now are the people of the state of Michigan.
People in the state of Michigan can access the filings and the filers can file.
Do we have,
We actually have a
should we
system.
go item by
in place.
item
Sure,
on what
I'm
they
happy-
can't do?
Sure, we're happy to do that, because we actually have a system in place that not only responds to issues that are raised to us, and I'm grateful for the many people who have brought specific things, but if I could just say, We are also proactively testing out potential bugs as we go through this process so that we don't have to wait for someone to bring them to our attention. But that said, if you've identified things that haven't been addressed, we'd love to be able to weave those into the process at a granular level.
Also, one thing I'd like to add is some of the main things that we've struggled with Mitten are some of the things that you look at feedback from MERTs where they have the exact same problems, and it's because of the data structure. Things like crashes, things like delays, things like the system, you know, this isn't an issue we have now, but their data loss would happen under MERTs. If you look at the feedback that we got from the lean process improvement before we did the RFP, all of these issues about it being hard to use, hard to search, slow to load, takes forever to download, that was MERTs.
Sounds to me like you got nothing. Sounds to me like you got a product that's the same as MERTs then.
No, I think we actually outlined those very specific ways that it's been improved. But
We can spin it however we want, but the fact is that the Mitten system does not work as it should. It does not work in a manner that's acceptable to the users. We can sit here as government officials all day and pat ourselves on the back and what it is we're doing. But the reality is when you talk to the users, Madam Secretary,
we have been talking to the users.
as have I,
And what we have been doing
very,
actually
very
is
unsatisfied.
Well, if,
Very
again, if there are specific, granular, data-driven suggestions that you have as opposed to just allegations, we're happy to.
These aren't allegations. We're back here reviewing it and acknowledge the problem. These aren't allegations. The
Again.
system does not work as it should.
What we would love, if that is your opinion, to get a list of specifically, because I just laid out all the ways in which we're going to improve the system and continue to improve it. We actually believe that continuous improvement by communicating and addressing in a specific way any challenges that you and others have identified is the way that we actually create the
I would
system
have started
that
with
benefits
leaving the
everyone.
merge system up until we proved that the Mitten system worked. That's generally how it happens. But clearly there's a decision made based on money with the company that owns both systems. So I'm going to go to Representative Green. I believe she has a question.
Thank you so much. So it's great that you got us off DOS. However, because clearly we needed a tech update. To me, 25 years ago is not that long ago, but technology things go fast. And you know, Mitten was supposed to give that voters that transparent access to data, but instead we got a broken failure to launch system. So the last time your office was here, Tina Anderson actually took the blame for the debacle. So in your opinion, who do you think ought to take the blame for the issues with the system so far?
Yeah, I take full responsibility. I'm very proud of the work that our department has done, working together with Tyler Technologies to consistently improve the system. If you actually look at it and run out all of the systems, it is on its way and consistently improving every day. And again, I have been having weekly and daily updates at a granular level with our team about every single bug that's come to our attention and what our plan is to fix it. And I have been extraordinarily grateful for the work we are doing together to ensure we're not just fixing those bugs, but we're improving the system.
And I understand that. I guess just going back to what Representative DeBoyer said is when it did launch, it didn't launch. And then I personally tried multiple times, and I even called the office to try and get my personal disclosure, and I'm pretty tech savvy. So
were you ultimately able to pilot?
I had to email my PDF. The deadline came, and I couldn't spend it any more time. So
yeah, it took me 10 minutes to use the module. It was actually quite good. But I hear you.
And I'm just saying, when it did work, it
Yeah.
wasn't consistent. And I guess that's the issue, is sometimes the system works, sometimes it doesn't. So to me, that's not a complete and thorough launch. And I guess that's what we were asking is, why couldn't the old information just still be available while you were working through the bugs? And I guess that's where it seems like we're in a communication failure here with that. So, thank you.
Minority Vice Chair Miller.
Secretary, so how are you going to provide assurance that this new system has been thoroughly tested and that going forward it's fully operational and we don't have these hiccups and glitches? And is there a contingency plan moving forward? And how will you train your staff when that contingency plan is, I hope, is in place? And how will they address the technical difficulties of that?
Yeah, I think my presentation sort of outlined a lot of those pieces. I don't know, Tina, if you want to add anything.
But I'm talking about when there is a problem, how will you implement that in your contingency plan?
Yeah, so we have monthly releases planned. As Secretary described, we have a release planned for July 12th. If there is an issue that comes up that is preventing a critical function, such as when we're doing a filing window, if there's an issue that comes up that prevents a filer from being able to file, we will push what's called a hot fix, which is a live fix directly. We planned out our July 12th release. We're also planning a release for August, September, and October. Those are both combinations of things that come up during our testing. We're doing, part of the reason that Secretary talked about the team working so many hours and kind of just being really persistent on this is to test every nook and cranny of this system. And anytime you, as you know in software development, anytime you make a change, that introduces the possibility that there's an issue that was introduced somewhere else. And so anytime we make a launch, we go back and what's called regression test everything that we had already tested to make sure there were no known issues introduced. And so the two primary mechanisms to address an issue that comes up is first, if it's not a critical issue, to file it for the next launch, and second, if it is a critical issue, to push a hot fix.
And was there a discount? I know this was brought up. You had mentioned that you were going to stop payment. Was
Right.
there any type of compensation?
Yeah. As I mentioned, we received a refund for any downtime, and we continue to calculate and increase that refund for any existing downtime.
What was that? How
The current refund stands at $166,000.
Thank you.
Representative Rodriguez.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Secretary Benson, for being here today. So I have a couple questions for you. On the vast list of issues that the site still has, which were listed just a few moments ago, how many did you know of when you decided to launch this new site?
So we knew there would be bumps along the way, and again, I've gotten updates throughout this process. What we didn't anticipate is just how challenging it would be to migrate these 24 million data points from a 25-year-old system that literally in many ways existed on a floppy disk into a new modernized system.
Sure.
And so that has been, that has evolved as we've gone along, and what we have done is really make and approach this as an all hands on deck moment, where the minute we hear of a bug, we have a system in place to address it. That said, I don't know, Tina, you
Yeah, sure.
want to add a little bit more granular level detail.
Absolutely. So just as a reminder, in December of '24, when we got a better sense of the risk that we were managing with the 24 million records data migration, we made a decision. Our original plan was to launch all the modules at one time when the system was completed with development. Because of this search data migration issue, we decided to launch in phases. That's why we launched Lobby first. And as a reminder, it was contract, it was cost, but a really key reason that we proceeded with launching the other modules was to minimize confusion. We didn't want to have some data in one system and some data in another. At the time we launched the Lobby module, we were aware of a handful of issues from a filer perspective, but the main one that we were aware of was the search data issue, and we continued to manage that. I want to say that in the Lobby filing, yes, filers had more difficulty filing than we want, but the number of electronic filings submitted in the first filing of 2024 is about the same that we get every single year under MERS. So filers were able to successfully make their filings. As we continued and got user feedback and continued engagement, continued that customer support like any other system, there were additional issues that came up and were put into our development process. As we launched additional modules, we acquired kind of the same type of information. So after every launch, we're talking with our users, we're making a list of the known issues, prioritizing those, putting them into future releases, and putting them into hot fixes.
Okay, and to follow up with that, you just mentioned a few minutes ago that you have a nook and cranny approach to working out the bugs and discovering all these issues. Why did you have that thorough approach before the launch? Because it made it very difficult for us legislators to follow the law and file these financial disclosures. I know you said that you took care of it in 10 minutes, but it's your department. You should have been able to do it in 10 minutes. But the rest of us here at a very difficult time in what is supposed to be more advanced, we had to pass 2 bills through the House and the Senate and have Governor Whitmer sign them to basically take some of that back from you and make some changes to make it more user-friendly. And as a result, this high technology, fix ended up being fill out a PDF and scan it into your office. So why didn't you do the nook and cranny approach before the launch? And I know you said that you did several, small launches, but the system was so messed up, and I would expect more from your department. I would expect more of a quality kind of quality control measures to take place before you launch this live, and we had no other system to work with.
So we're talking about 3 different systems here. We've got the lobbying filings, you're talking about personal financial disclosure, and the campaign.
Lump it into
finance
one
system.
because it's all a mess.
Yes. The Michigan Transparency Network is designed to move everything into one system. The problems you just mentioned with the personal financial disclosure and the bills you reference, actually, they didn't really change or react to the system as much as they clarified, or some would say limited, the amount of things you needed to disclose. But in addition to that, there had been conversations since we built this system a year ago about allowing a PDF option. It was Senator McBroom who approached us with this then, and we had conversations at that point, again, a year ago. The problem with the PDF approach is that it makes it much more difficult for the public to actually search and get that information that the disclosure reports are supposed to produce. Mm-hmm. And so we did create a system that, again, we had technical support available for anyone who, in advance of the original deadline in May, was having challenges. Several people did file without challenges, not just me, but I went in myself just as an innocent user to say, okay, how hard is this really? And I actually found it to be easier than it was when I filed the year before, and in many ways unchanged from the filings that were in place in 2024 in that module. So all that said, we hear you, and again, our job is to meet you where you are and get you what you need so that you can provide the information that the public has asked. And so we're happy to adjust and we did adjust the module to reflect the new limited disclosures that the new law contained, and ensured that if people wanted to file with a PDF, that was an option available. It's still not what I would advise because the system actually is easy to use, and the best way to give public information about the information that you've got to disclose is through the portal itself. I don't know, Tina, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I'm really grateful to the 47 lawmakers who did file with me. And in addition, there were even some folks in this committee who filed ahead of that law change. And so part of the reason that we provided additional support, the BOE team was available until midnight on the filing deadline. And a lot of that was because this is a new system. It's behind my login for security purposes, and that's a new thing to figure out. And so we really want, there are certain things about when you file something that's behind a single sign-on, and you have to have the information, and it's a new exercise. We totally understand that. And so one of our main goals in the July 13th deadline, 13th, right? 13th, was to make sure that we had adequate customer user support available, and we're really grateful to the folks, especially the folks on the committee who took advantage of that.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Beerline.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to kind of piggyback off of Representative Regan. So there were, I think you said 47 users who filed through the system. So everybody else used the PDF, which those bills originated in the Senate. That wasn't a partisan issue. It was bipartisan. The governor signed it. So there was obviously, despite the 47 people who were able to file, there were problems. It made it through the Senate. It made it through the House. The governor. There was a recognition that there was another avenue needed to get this done. And I feel like there's kind of been that's been dismissed. It was easy. I did it. It took 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that case for everyone. And I feel like that's been kind of dismissed, that we didn't need a PDF. And now that we have that, we went through the PDF process. I can search my name. I use the PDF. Nothing comes up in the public search. What is the status of all of those PDFs? How are they going to be uploaded? How is the public going to get that information? And is there some recognition that there was a need?
Yeah, so all PDFs are posted on the page that has the public search. They're not currently incorporated into the public search. Right now, the system doesn't have a mechanism for us to, on the back end, input data for a lawmaker respond.
Yeah, the reason why is because you have to manually enter all the information in the PDF into the system on behalf of the folks who didn't use the module. So we get it, it's easier for you to file a PDF, but for us, it means for the staff, they now need to go into that PDF and manually enter it on your behalf into the module so that people can access it. So that's what's happening now, and that was the discussion we had a year ago about using PDFs and the challenge that it would create. And that is not related to any failure on our part. It's actually just a function of the way PDFs work and the way modules work. And so we will, as we get through this process, have to create a system for manually entering that PDF data, and that will take time for staff at the BOE to be able to do. And that's why we will continually encourage people to use the Mitten module. But again, it's a new system, and we'll work with your teams to, I get it, and trust me, last year when I did it, the first time I did it, I was very frustrated with my login. I was very, there are frustrations with any new system that just are a delta between a user's expectations for what a system should be and what a system is. So that's it. That's why we've made available so many of our staff to help walk people through the module process, and did throughout the filing period. And we'll do that next year as well.
Representative Wolford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Secretary Benson, for being here today. You started off with you believe in fair transparency, and I appreciate that. Going back to Chair DeBoyer's comment and questions on MERTS and the new system, we're looking at, you'd mentioned somewhere around 1.8 million in a maintenance contract to keep MERTS in place until we knew something was functioning. And either we missed an opportunity there in negotiating with a company, or Tyler Technologies is taking advantage of our taxpayers and its dollars. Having said that, you mentioned saving taxpayer dollars, and then you mentioned that there was a vendor downtime discount of $166,000. Is that the discount so far in total?
Yes, go ahead. And just to clarify, so there's two separate things here. To keep MERTS and do nothing, just renew the contract, would have been 1.8 million, just to keep things. And so to modernize the system and move forward is 1.2. So that's the difference. There was no situation in which
or negotiate with them and saying, we're getting ready to give you $9 million. Could you maybe keep the system going until we're ready to go? And I know
you must have on the reality there. Yeah.
I know that hindsight is 20/20, but I mean those are kind of basic fundamentals in negotiation.
Yeah. Can I actually ask, had we made that proposition, what would your response have been? What would have been that that's really just not possible and confusing to maintain the two systems?
Pull the mic over because we can't
Yeah,
get
sorry,
on the mic.
thank
Thank you.
Thank you. So let's take this in pieces. First, let's just talk about the concept that this wasn't a well-negotiated contract, or that the state didn't do right for itself under the contract. I think that an objective read of the contract would show that the state did a very good job in protecting for risk under the contract. The last time I was here, I mentioned the fact that this is a 5-year fixed fee contract. So even though we expected one level of resources in order to get the system live, we have surged resources. In fact, more than doubled the resources we've extended to this project, and the state hasn't paid a dime for those additional resources. Another thing that the Secretary has mentioned multiple times is this, she's used the word refund under the contract. If you want to look for it, they're called service level credits. Those were negotiated both for system availability, other words, uptime, downtime, and also for certain support issues. When either of those thresholds are triggered, the state gets a service level credit. Those are just some examples of the negotiated financial benefits Tyler conceded and the state secured under the contract. In terms of the question of preserving MERTS until X point of time where a mitten trigger is reached, first of all, you've heard about the fact that that type of analysis was done. MERTS was extended beyond its original contract expiration as the mitten implementation continued. You also heard me reference to the chair the fact that when MERTS was extended yet further, we gave another financial credit to the state to account for that. But at a certain point, when you are doing your phased rollout and you start to go live and into operational use on certain filings,
you compound the complexities of an already complex data management and data normalization problem by having new data being put in your old system while other data is being put in your new system. And so it is a common project management decision, and it's a tough decision, but it is a common project management decision to say we are shutting down the legacy system, we are going live in the new system, and we are going to confront the challenges that arise as they do.
And just to be clear, so you're saying you made a conscious decision to shut it down when we knew that, or I should say, start the new system when we knew that it wasn't working. Is that correct?
Can you repeat that question? I don't think that that's
Well,
correct.
you just said that you had to make a tough decision in project management to make a decision to stop MERS and start the new system, even when, in essence, it wasn't working.
I can't agree with that because I disagree with the last part of your summary.
Okay, yeah, well, thank you for that. Also, you had mentioned that basically, you know, your team is implementing a corrective action plan, increasing user communication, and then adding project managers to this to make this better. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, that's correct. So we've added additional project management resources from DTMB. We've also brought in data architecture resources from DTMB and user interface resources from DTMB who are doing analyses for us that we will incorporate into future releases.
So we hired a company, Tyler Technologies, to do a job for us, and now we're hiring other people. We're using our internal resources to help them get this fixed.
That's the job of DTMB and others on our department. And we, again, in every type of modernization that we've encountered, whether it was cars, whether it was creating the online voter registration portal, whether it's simply just getting ready for a high-profile, high voter turnout election, we always make sure our staff works as a team and is willing to move in furtherance of the most critical needs of the department as a whole in that particular moment. So it's not unique to this, and it's actually just how our team has worked really well to effectively solve and address the problems that we take on.
Thank you. And in closing, I would just ask, I would like to see a greater discount for our taxpayers than $166,000. I'd like to see the contract renegotiated. And in any contract, obviously, you know, you're very smart. I know you know this, but just system functionality. You know, there's something called liquidated damages, where if deadlines are missed, contract penalties incur. So I guess my final question for you is: at what point do you, and I mean this very respectfully, because you've been very good in giving attaboys and you know, thanking your staff and Tyler Technologies, but they may need to hear from you a little bit more fire in getting this thing done. And then at what point do you look at this, and how long do we let this go until we look at going with a different company to get this done?
Yeah, so two things. One, just because I haven't been fiery to my staff in front of this committee doesn't mean I haven't been fiery. That said, but I hear everything you're saying and appreciate your feedback. And yeah, all I would say a number of things are on the table. I'm just focused on improving this product and getting it working by the July 24th deadline, you know, the upcoming campaign finance deadline. That's been our priority. We're going to continue to have those tough conversations and assess how to fairly both keep things moving, because we've got work to do, right, while also assessing a fair financial agreement that will reflect the challenges we've encountered over the last several months that were unexpected. And really as a result of these 24 million records that were outdated on a floppy disk. But that said, I do want to thank Tyler Technologies, because they could have just walked away, right? They could have just said, you know what, we failed, we're done, and dealt with the ramifications. Instead, they have doubled the amount of resources without charging us any more money, doubled the amount of resources that they are spending to get this right. And that is really important to me to maintain so that we can get this right, because again, we have a job to do. And then continue to have the conversations about how we assess a fair financial agreement as well along the way. I think that has been how we've operated, and you know, again, we don't get this fixed without working together. And that's what we've been focused on, but we will also be using fairness and looking at all of the realities as we go through this, through the lens that you suggest. And that's part of the reason why we're able to talk about the credits we've already received. And also have this additional, again, double the resources that Tyler originally expected to devote to this project. They have doubled those resources, doubled the staff, the man hours, the person hours, and not charged us a single additional cent. And you could argue that, yeah, that should be expected because they agreed to deliver a product and they need to deliver it. But I don't think that that should go unrecognized as well, because it is a statement about their continued devotion as well to getting this right.
Thank you. And then do we have a hard stop on this contract if it's not done by a certain date? And if it's not, what do those significant discounts for our taxpayers start taking place and they're not done? Thank you for being here.
Yeah, so one of the things I'm grateful to our DT&B procurement partners for is, as Abby mentioned, the contract is extremely favorable to the state of Michigan in the sense that it's a flat fee contract for deliverables. We pay X amount for the thing that we bought. And if we get to the point where we have paid X amount and we still don't have the thing, Tyler is still on the hook to deliver it. The end of this contract, it's a 5-year contract, and it was started in 24, so 2029. But that's not our goal. The 5-year contract is for maintenance. Our goal is to have this system fully functioning by the end of this year, because we don't want to be making major. One of the main reasons that we pushed to launch Mitten now is because we don't want to be doing this in an election year. We want to be able to have everything functioning, everybody understand how to make their filings and be accustomed to it.
So it's your goal, but it's nothing necessarily in writing.
So it will be. That's the corrective action plan that Secretary
Awesome.
mentioned. Yes.
Yeah, and then I'll also, and this is not like, and then we'll wait and see. This is like every day, we are looking at bugs, asking people to submit us fixes, and then addressing them either right away or at the next monthly rollout. And then every monthly rollout, but I've been really frankly impressed with the level of meticulousness that staff have been evaluating every single change that's happening in a monthly rollout, and then evaluating on the other end whether that change was accomplished successfully. And as I laid out during my presentation, there have been significant improvements and upgrades. The searchable systems, a lot of what people were saying wasn't available 2 months ago is now available, and we're just going to keep improving and improving and improving, and then assessing those improvements as we go. And that's why, to us, we're also looking beyond this moment to say, work with us to tell us what more you want. What additional things that are far better than MERT's ever had, can we work with you to integrate into the system? We hear the points on the user friendliness. Yes, let's work on that. But let's also work on other things that we can, and we're, again, working with other stakeholders in the media as well to say, let's build this out together. And that's one of the opportunities that, again, this increased scrutiny has created for us, an opportunity to say, great, come on board, tell us more of what you want, and let's work together to build it.
One other thing I would add to your question, Representative Wolford, is one of the things that, when you use a system and it feels clunky or it feels slow, that minimizes trust in the system, it minimizes confidence in the system. So we've been working very hard at that search response time. So when you type in something and hit search, how long does it take to give you the answers? That metric has improved by 97% since June 6th. Between June 6th and June 20th, the search latency has improved by 97%, and that's a key metric for us to keep watching, because when folks use something and it spits out the answer right away, that will increase confidence and increase usability.
For Tyler Technologies, would you say that perhaps the RFP as it was written maybe lacked scope as to what your company expected they were to do with regard to the software program?
I think that the RFP provided the scope and had a series of functional requirements that we addressed and responded to. It is inevitable, and I think probably occurs in most projects, that you can answer thousands of functional specifications, and it is not until you are in the real world environment of standing up a system that you realize some of the intricacies and nuances that you need to account for and wouldn't have even thought to have accounted for when you were drafting the RFP. And so the key to that is having a really good communication and collaboration relationship with your client, and to make sure that both of you stay shoulder to shoulder as that process continues, because it is an iterative process, and the deeper you get into the details, the more you find the potential you couldn't have even imagined to scope for in the RFP. So I think that very common process happened here as well.
Are you aware of a conference called the Michigan Cyber Summit?
The Michigan Cyber Summit, no.
No, you're not. Madam Secretary, Michigan Cyber Summit.
Could you go into a little bit more detail?
Sure.
There's a lot of Michigan
Yeah,
Cyber
absolutely.
Summits.
This is put on by eRepublic in partnership with DTMB,
Mhm.
seemingly on an annual basis. There's a conference. The idea
Yes.
is collaboration, bring
Yeah.
people together.
Mhm.
Have you participated in that? Has Tyler participated in that?
So I think the three of us sitting here would not participate in the Michigan Cyber Summit. I can ask our partners at DTMB. One of the things I've been grateful for in this process is our partners at DTMB being very close. We rely on their technical expertise, and we are the subject matter experts on campaign finance.
So would it be safe to say that Tyler Technologies has never participated in that summit?
It
Never
wouldn't be
participated
safe to
in
say that. I don't know personally. I'm also happy to take that as a follow-up.
Okay.
And I think you'd have to be invited to participate, right? And so the question would be, were they invited?
Sure, I guess that's a possibility. I mean, it's an interesting conference. Because if you pay $35,000, you can have a half-hour meeting with the directors of DTMP, right? And so my concern, the reason I asked you that question is, you actually were the single source. There was 2 bidders, but one was not qualified, if I understand that correctly. Is that correct?
No, it's not.
So
single source is a specific term of art in procurement. This
Yes.
was an open competitive bid. We received 2 bids. Per DTMB procurement processes, we reviewed each of those bids for technical specifications. The second bidder was found to be deficient on security and legal specifications. So per DTMB procurement rules, as a rule, we don't review those bids. What we do is we take a look at the remaining bids, and if they are found to be sufficient, then they are eligible to be awarded.
So you can award by your own rules, if you will. Is that the right way to say it?
The state of Michigan.
Your own standards.
The state of
State of
Michigan.
Michigan.
If
Procurement process.
a single bidder that's qualified is the only option you have.
It's true, no matter how many
Sure.
bids you have,
Yep.
but the selected bid does have to meet the technical specifications and does have to be evaluated as sufficient by the evaluation committee.
And in this case, you had a company that has done successful partnerships with the state of Michigan before. Many companies, even if they would hypothetically apply for such a bid, wouldn't be able to have that same track record.
Okay. I'll be interested to see a little more information about the Michigan Cyber Summit, if you might be able to dig into that a little bit for me.
Thank you.
Representative Merriman.
Thank you, Chair. I realize the second bidder had some deficiencies in their bid. What was the difference in the amount of the bid?
I'm not familiar with the monetary difference in the amount of the bid, but for us, the risk is too great. So if a bidder doesn't qualify under our security standards, because this Michigan Department of State has exceptionally high security standards for all of our data systems, we won't even consider that bid.
Can you get back to me with the difference?
Sure, absolutely.
And we may not have even gone that far down the road with any specifics like that, but we're certainly happy to get back to you with any.
But they had to have some kind of number attached to their bid.
Yes,
If you
I can
didn't
get
look
back.
at it.
I can get back to you on that. I just want to be clear though that our goal is not necessarily to get the cheapest bid, because sometimes when you get the cheapest bid, you get the cheapest service. We want good value for Michigan taxpayers.
One more question, Mr. Chair. So, this is citizens legislature, and I'm a dairy farmer sitting up here, not, having any much experience in the technology world, and I understand, I can see some of the difficulties it is to implement a system. I guess my question is, as we got closer and closer to this date, and it seemed like, even from a legislative perspective, the ones that were supposed to be using the system, it was a system that wasn't able to be used. And we had a filing deadline that we all had to meet by state statute. Was there ever a discussion about just taking, like we eventually did, an email form of PDF?
Yes.
I would have thought that would have been a nice relief for a lot of us, but it seemed like we were still forcing the system that wasn't working.
I appreciate that. I think there are also a lot of just constraints within what the law required us to provide, and what the law that was recently enacted did was clarify that a PDF was acceptable. And so there's always a question of product as well as what legally we're able to do and offer as an option. But that said, as I mentioned before, yes, those discussions were ongoing, and I credit Senator McBroom for talking to us directly a great deal over the last year about that, and understand how it made its way into not just the most recent legislation, but again, let's all be clear, the legislation wasn't just about that. It didn't just do that. It did other things as well. So all that said, I appreciate though your feedback, and I'm glad we're continuously working with the legislature to create a user-friendly system that also will provide that information in an accessible way to the public.
I mean, I believe the statute just required the information to be gathered and then be publicly available, so if we couldn't input it into a system that wasn't working, then we could have given it to you in hard copy, and you guys could have inputted it then and put it in data system.
So I'll have to look at the specific wording of the law, but before SB 99 and 100 were passed, the wording of the law required us to put it into an electronic system, which when we looked at that, we didn't know if PDFs would suffice or not. The SB 99-100 clarified that emailing a PDF was an acceptable form of receiving that information. Under SB 99 and 100, we still cannot take a paper copy. We have to receive it via email and PDF.
For the Constitution.
Yeah.
I guess I still stand by the idea that even if you were to kind of show up in the office and input it yourself sitting there into your own system, because we just were stuck with a system where it wasn't functionally working, and we were days away from being in violation of state law.
Yeah, I hear you. I would just say that the framing that it wasn't working to enable people to file their personal financial disclosure reports was not everyone's experience, including my own. And when I began to hear those challenges a month beforehand, I went into the system on a regular basis and kept testing it. And yes, there were times where I clicked enter and it was blank screen, as I think Rep. Green mentioned, the inconsistencies. I think that was you. So I get that, and I experienced that personally. And then I would do what I would hope any user would do whenever a system fails, which I would reach out to the Bureau of Elections as a user and say, hey, this isn't working, can we get this working? And then it got working, and then I filed. So I was able to both file my report by the May 15th original deadline, but also amend it several times, which again was more just my trying to see if you could keep going in and fix it. And then we were available through midnight and several other days and after hours to work with folks as well. So I hear what you're saying. Again, it's a new system, and we are consistently working to, in the second year of iteration, ensure everyone has the tools they need to comply with it. But it is a partnership where we need to be able to work together and get that user feedback in the moment so that we can address whatever concerns or challenges or frustrations or walls people are hitting, and then make it possible for you to comply with the law and ensure that you have all that you need to do so.
One final quick point, if I had this kind of trouble in banking with a bank, transferring information, I mean, I don't even know it. Banks do this technology thing all the time on the back side, and they don't bother me, because if I get this much problem for my bank, I'm moving to a new bank. So somehow they're able to get their technology on the back side working fairly seamlessly, where I don't even know what's happening. I don't even know they're changing vendors. I don't even know they're changing programs. It seems like it really failed, so thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I would just say on any given day, there are so many different upgrades and modernizations happening behind the scenes similarly in our department and in departments across the state that never rise to this level of scrutiny. So I get that and appreciate that, and again, are ready to meet the moment and answer the questions that you have. But I think there's more context to the real functionality that DTMB in our department has found, and I think that's evidenced by the many other public-facing systems that we have upgraded over the last several years successfully, even if in those times there were challenges along the way.
Yeah, I 100% appreciate that, and one of the things that I have been thinking, honestly, through this process is this is kind of what happens when you don't upgrade a system for 25 years.
Yeah.
Where you're taking data out of the system that, as Secretary mentioned, I was a young child when Mertz was first born, and the fundamental understructure of the technology had not been changed. And so when you're taking something that is 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 technology generations old and upgrading it, that's when you get this complexity. Whereas I think a lot in the private sector, there's continuous investment and IT upgrades to avoid this kind of thing. And one of the things that's great about Mitten that we couldn't do on MERTS is MERTS, because it was not a cloud-based technology, it was not something that you could push an update live. You had to get all the users to download the new version, and if they didn't download the new version, there could be difficulties with data retention. Now that we're on this cloud-based platform, we're on a more modernized technology stack. We'll be able to make those upgrades more continuously and throughout in the future.
Representative Schreiber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Secretary Benson, can you provide a comprehensive list of non-governmental organizations with privileged access to Mitten?
Is there one
follow
you're,
up on that?
yeah,
Is there one
could
you're
you
aware
go
of?
into a little bit more specificity of what you're doing at?
Are there any non-governmental organizations that have privileged access to Mitten?
Not that I'm aware of, but I want to be comprehensive in my response so we can
I
follow
want to
up.
understand what you're getting at before.
Please do. Can you provide a list of election records accessible by Mitten?
Mitten is campaign finance records, not election records.
Good. And finally, smurfing. It's kind of a weird word, but it's got some meaning and it applies to Mitten. So smurfing is such as like huge donor-focused organizations like Act Blue coordinating numerous small dollar amount donations using false front straw donors without donor knowledge. How would Mitten users issue queries that would reveal Smurf-based mechanisms?
And are you saying MERTS did do this?
I'm wondering how Mitten users can issue queries to reveal these Smurf-based fraud mechanisms, so that as Michigan residents use Mitten, how can they use it to detect these types of wrongdoings?
Thank you for the question. So one of the things that we were really careful on with Mitten is to make sure that it was in exact compliance with our complicated campaign finance law. One of the things that we get questions about from users all the time is, why isn't there a date on this filing? Why isn't there a specific name on this filing? Why can't I find more detail on this filing? And the answer often is because Michigan law doesn't require the filer to disclose it. And so we'd be happy to work with you on additional legislative changes that would provide more transparency into campaign finance in Michigan. Right now, Mitten is fully compliant with all of Michigan's campaign finance laws for disclosure. We do get that question a lot though. People expect to be able to see things that are not required to buy.
Yeah, and on that note, I'll just add, one of the challenges with the data migration, with the legacy data with MERTS and going to this new system, is that MERTS had no data validation at all. So people could enter misspelled names of donors, right? And there was no mechanism for fixing that. And so one of the reasons why, and one of the things we've tried to fix now going into Mitten, is that very type of validation system. And this is the type of thing that through additional conversation and collaboration we can explore in context with what the law allows, so that we can continue to improve and create the most user-friendly system possible, while also recognizing improving technologies that will continue to emerge in the years ahead throughout the course of this contract, and involving laws that we can continue to incorporate and increase the reliability and user-friendliness of.
I appreciate it, yes. Smurfs, happy,
Yeah,
kind of different from Smurfing we're talking
so
about.
I thought Smurfs were like, the blue guys with the white.
Yeah, look into it. It's kind of a new thing to me, but it relates just because, campaign finance reporting, and you get these, large conglomerates kind of divvying up donations to unknown individuals and these straw men. That could be a really big issue, as you can tell. So I appreciate your time on this.
Thank you.
Chair, can I get a point of order?
Let's have it work.
I have a question then, for you as a chair, which is, how are we being recognized by the chair? Because we've been in here now for, an hour and 15 minutes, and there have been 7 Republicans called on and only 1 down. That's my question.
Right, we're recognizing them
Is it
based on select
is it
individuals who have
first come,
special.
first serve, or is it your discretion? Because I think several of us.
We have a list.
Is it like first come, first serve? or-
Listen, we're not gonna debate
Okay.
the individuals as we're going through who's gonna ask for it, okay? I appreciate your desire to interject, but we're not gonna do that. Thank you. Do you have a question?
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I had a couple questions. I appreciate being recognized. I just want to make sure we're, this is a bipartisan effort here. Couple things. First, I think we haven't been talking about how the old system actually costs candidates more. Like, for example, treasurers I've worked with have had to buy PCs rather than Macs. So I appreciate us moving to a new system. And I know last time we had this, I asked if we would be getting a refund. Glad to see that that's coming. I myself had issues with the system. I reached out to MDOS, and within 24 hours it got fixed. We actually identified a bug that hadn't been previously identified. What I had done was created, I started my filing, then walked away and came back, and that somehow created a bug, and I went back in and created a duplicate. Anyway, we figured it out, I think, which was successful. But my question is this, I'd love to hear more specifically about how the new system will bring more transparency to Michigan residents, because you said something earlier that I think we haven't talked about, which is that MERT's never validated data.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to know more about how that leads to a lack of transparency and how this new system might fix that.
Yeah, I think there are a number of different improvements because I've asked the same question, that I want, a specific granular list of all the ways in which Mitten can be better. And there's an element of, and we've talked a little bit, and it's been, frankly, I believe, unfairly and sort of statically framed as this unusable system writ large. But if you actually go into it, and I have been, because I want to be able to stand before you and say with integrity the system is working. And when I submit searches for everyone from this particular donor and everyone they've given to, I find that information. And so, and every time I hit a wall, there's a process. I report the bug, it gets fixed, and then I'm able to complete whatever it is I'm trying to do. So all that said, number one, we're at or close to parity of what we had with MERTS into Mitten now. And as I outlined, there are a few just small things regarding summary pages that will be addressed in the July 12th update, and then any remaining issues will be addressed before the end of the summer. And so then we enter this place of being able to say, what more do we want to be able to search for, disclose, download? Can we just enter one treasurer, which you could not do under MERTS, and find out every filing that they're connected with, which you can do under Mitten? Can you just enter one address and see every address that everywhere that comes up? You couldn't do that under MERTS, not only because of the lack of data validation, because you'd have Drive and DR not showing up as one and the same address. Now we have that validation system and can do that, and we have a system in place that we never had with MERTS to continuously improve the outputs, the search opportunities, even just the way in which it's framed on the website. So for example, the other day I went to the website, again, I do this often, just as a user, to go in and see, okay, what is my user experience gonna be? And I noticed the search function was down at the bottom of the page as opposed to up at the top. I went in not to log in to file my report, I went in to do a search. I needed that up further in the page. So I raised that, brought that as a user, as an anonymous user, and that was quickly addressed within 24 hours. So so I say that to answer your question in that we can still evolve the number of ways in which Mitten can provide even more transparency. That's one of the things we build into the system. As laws evolve, as technology evolves, as AI enables us to do even more, we have a contract that is live and focused on that continuous improvement so that we're keeping up with the laws and technological improvements to make it as transparent as possible.
Yeah, and if you'd allow me to put my data nerd hat on for just a second, one of the things that was not possible, under MERTS, the Secretary has mentioned, the lobby filings, the campaign finance filings, all of the different campaign finance data lived in its own separate little house. You couldn't bring it together. You couldn't analyze it together. One of the things that's a part of the complexity of this migration is pulling all of that data together and understanding how the fields relate to each other. Because as we know, there are folks who wear multiple hats, right? They're lobbyists, they're donors, folks, go back, get elected and then do things after they are out of office. And so the new system brings all of that information into a data system where we can actually tie those pieces of data together and look at them. And one of the things that the team is really excited about is being able to answer some of the really common questions. We actually connected with researchers and journalists folks who use this information all day, every day, and really heard in depth some of the like meticulous spreadsheets that they're copying and pasting and pulling things into and trying to keep their own, analysis of the records. Because all of this information is now related, they're in relatable data tables, we can start to do some of that analysis. We can start to make things available for users where you can see the connections between the different committees. And so our goal in bringing it into this modernized data platform is to enable some of that functionality. And if you get us talking about it, we're very excited about it.
I appreciate that. Madam Secretary,
Yeah.
I have one further issue. So as the as a chief officer of campaign finance maintenance, as you're aware, there was a determination that came down from Attorney General Nessel with regard to your announcement using the Austin building for campaign, and it's clearly a campaign violation. Do you intend to either, first let me ask you, did you post to your website the determination of the violation?
It should be posted. If it's not, it will be. Just like any
Yeah,
other.
Secretary of State shall post on Secretary of State's
Okay.
internet website whether or not there may be reason to believe that a violation has occurred. Has that occurred? Has that been
I know
posted?
it's, I know I was told it was, but I haven't specifically checked. Yes, it's been posted, yeah.
And would you say that, that based on the findings from the Attorney General, that you, as the campaign finance, would have reason to believe that there was a violation?
The Attorney General issued a new interpretation of the law. It is resolved. I do believe that the Secretary of State should be treated just like everyone else under the law, so I'm grateful for the legislation that would help clarify what was a new interpretation.
But to be certain, does that mean that you did not believe that you committed a violation of campaign finance?
I appreciate that the matter has been resolved. And so what I believe or don't believe is not relevant to, I believe, the legislative purpose behind the oversight here. But what I will say is that I believe the Secretary of State and everyone else should be treated the same under the law, and appreciate the Attorney General's analysis and the new interpretation of the law that she issued on multiple fronts and interpretation of the facts. And the matter is resolved, is her opinion.
But
here.
resolved determined by who?
By the Attorney General.
But
It's-
you
it
are
says-
the one that makes the determination, Madam Secretary.
Well, no, in this case, actually, under the law, the Attorney General makes that determination.
If there's been a violation, but you make a determination based on the sanctions that come afterwards. And my question to you is, do you intend to acknowledge the violation publicly, because I haven't seen that anywhere? Do you intend to perhaps refer it back to the Attorney General's office to deal with whatever those sanctions may be? Or will you just handle that internally as a matter of ethics and say, hey, this is what I did,
Yeah.
this is what we would sanction someone that does this, so here's what I'm going to do?
Yeah, I'll
Is
say
that
two
going
things.
to come?
May I answer? So I'll tell you one. I'm very flattered that you suggest you watch and hear everything I say. I don't think you've heard everything I've said on this, because I have very clearly
That's
said
my ability.
exactly as what I've said here to multiple fronts. It's resolved, and we moved on. We did reach out, because what would typically happen in many situations is the Attorney General would then refer to the department, but because the opinion that the Attorney General issued clearly says the matter is resolved. It is considered under the law to be a resolved matter as she has determined it.
Right.
So that's
Not as your authority, as the Secretary of State.
But the
Representative
law
Carr?
talks about who has the authority in this matter. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Secretary Benson, for coming in today. I like that EDC with my subcommittee. Every time I ask them to come in, they come in to testify. So I certainly appreciate you taking this opportunity to come in here. If we ever want you back in the future sometime, I hope that you will come back. As it relates to Mitten here, there was $1.7 million initially for the implementation of Mitten, and it was 10,461 man-hours. I just looked at the numbers. Thank you for getting those hours to us, by the way. That would be $163 per hour, man-hour. It's pretty expensive.
Can we correct
Context,
that?
that would be over $300,000 salary for 5 full-time employees. Do you feel that the taxpayers got a good deal with that?
Well, it's actually much less than that, because I've asked those very same questions. So if we could just update the information to be more aligned with it.
Yes,
That's
that was
the data that you guys gave us.
I think you're misreading it, with all due respect.
I think I'm
We
reading
can
it pretty
clarify.
clearly, or you guys didn't present it very well.
We can
I'll
clarify it for you, sir.
Double check what was sent to you, but it's actually 20,000 man-hours. And I'll,
For the initial implementation, it was 10,461. You guys have
But the
put in more
cost
man hours
that you're
after.
referencing.
I'm talking about the initial implementation.
So I think you're comparing the
Are
full
you
cost.
talking about the contract or what was actually expended?
Prior to the implementation, you guys put in 10,461 man hours, and that was $1.7 million.
Prior to
That's
the-
very clear in this paperwork here. You guys have had to put in more time because you guys failed to deliver in the time
Correct.
frame you were supposed to deliver.
That's-
So you've had to put in more man hours.
Yes.
So I think
correct.
what,
So
I think Tyler Technologies can address that specifically.
You're looking at a document. What's the document you're looking at? You said it says here. Are you?
One that the secretary gave us here.
Okay. So the information that we provided for submission was a total of 22,000 hours.
Total,
Total, yes.
not for implementation.
No, for implementation.
And the corrections you guys have had to do because you failed to deliver the first time through when you were supposed to. But at any rate, you can tell me about the numbers you have. Go ahead, thank you.
And as you know, I disagree with your characterization as well. But the hours we provided were 22,000 approximately man hours through current status to implement the system. That works out to an hourly rate of approximately $100 an hour.
Is that good? Using your numbers?
I'll say, I wanted to just thank you for pointing out that Michigan taxpayers actually got a better deal than originally intended out of the contract because we do have a fixed fee contract. And so if there's an issue that Tyler needs to devote additional man hours to, they are on the hook for that, not us. One of the things that I've experienced working with the Tyler team is that they have their top data scientists working on this. And as I know my colleagues at DTMB can discuss, those folks are extremely well educated, experienced, and so they, in the private sector command very high salaries. And I'm grateful that we're able to work with folks with such expertise and especially on the contractor's time.
Okay, thank you. Would Mitten system enable users to track donations from Michigan Legacy PAC to Supreme Court candidate campaigns?
Yeah.
It would be able to track that?
I don't, unless you're referring to something that I'm not familiar with.
I'm just curious if it'd be able to do that. Perfect, thank you. My last question, if I may, Mr. Chair. Secretary Benson, if you were to apologize for anything to the people of Michigan, and I'm not perfect either, but if you had the choice to apologize for one thing, either the rollout of your campaign for governor from the taxpayer funded building, this Mitten disaster that we've had with the rollout here, or the fact that you have more unfavorable election-related losses than any other Secretary of State recorded in Michigan's history, which one would you apologize for?
I mean, to me, in this era of misinformation, I think we all have to recognize that we've got to do more to ensure citizens have access to accurate information about their leaders and their elected officials. And that is specifically what Mitten and all of our work to increase the transparency of government is designed to do. So I'm grateful for all the work that our team has done, and I'm grateful to all of you for providing so many additional insights into how we can continue to make all of our systems more user-friendly and more transparent.
So you wouldn't apologize for any of the 3 times?
I'm committed to continuously improving my service to the state of Michigan, and my track record speaks for itself.
Thank you.
We have one last question, Vice Chair Miller.
Point, oh, sorry.
Yeah, Chair, I got handed to you. Your report is, and your presentation was very thorough, and we've been hammering you with questions, and you've answered those with ease. I want to talk on your fixes coming up. You say in July there will be specific fixes. Can you give a timeline to that? And then also on the $166,000 that was refunded, how does that equate in lost hours? And one more thing, why would Tyler Technologies buy months? I don't understand that. So, thank you.
So I can't speak to any decisions of Tyler Technology, but what I can say is that we're continuously working on a daily and monthly basis to handle minor upgrades on a daily basis and then significant upgrades on a monthly basis. The next monthly, the first one was in May 31st. The next one was June 17th. The next one is July 12th. And then there will be ones in August in the future as necessary to continually to build out and improve the system. So the July 12th update, Tina, do you want to go into more specifics about what?
Sure.
But no set timeline for August, September.
So what we do is we plan our releases about 2 months out. And we look at days where there are likely to be low users on the site. We look at days where there's high availability for our tech support. And we pick a date. We haven't picked our date for August yet, but we will soon.
And those are the types of things we'd also like to do with all of you. Again, like, my hope for being here today is that we're available to answer questions to all of you in all fronts, but also that we can work together, because we can actually make this even better than before by working together and collaborating in a data-driven, solution-oriented way. So whether it's meeting in moments like this or meeting in our offices and talking more, we're here to work with you and to meet with you and to not just answer your questions, but to build a better system together. So I do hope that I can leave you all with that today. Continue to answer questions about all these things, but I can't emphasize enough that everything we've gone through over these last few months has only made our department better. It has made the system better. It has made our contract better. And we're just going to keep working with you, I hope, but towards that end of continuously improving and getting better.
Tyler acquired NIC in 2021. NIC owned the project here through its Michigan LLC to manage and operate MERTs. We wanted to acquire NIC for a lot of the reasons the Secretary just mentioned. It is a data-driven, solution-oriented vendor that would allow us to expand our offerings to the public sector, which is Tyler's exclusive market focus. There's a lot more reasons, as you can probably imagine, for why we would want to make an acquisition of another company. All of those are publicly disclosed if you're curious for additional information, but at the very highest of levels. I just wanted to clarify, we acquired NIC.
But you said how awful it is and commented on how old and outdated the system was. I just wanted to hear.
Yeah, and I guess this gets to your first question, Chair. They acquired the company, and through that, the software, but it was the acquisition of the company that led to what I think the Chair was referring to at the beginning, and that sometimes can include acquiring outdated systems that are in need of improvement, and that's what happened here.
Madam Secretary, appreciate you taking the time to be here today. Thank you guys for the support staff.
Chair DeBoyer, Chair DeBoyer.
Excuse me.
Point of order.
Appreciate you being here today. Yes. Point of order.
Thank you. Respectfully, Chair DeBoyer. Last term, I called on you on every single meeting, and you spoke, you asked questions, and I have been...
Is there a point of order here?
Yes, I've
The
been
point of order
patiently
is-
waiting through 2 meetings to ask
The point
questions.
of order is...
The point of order is, I
Representative
believe...
Sternglue, respectfully, you were a chair.
Yes.
You understand that questions are at the discretion of the chair, so it is not a point of order. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair DeBoyer. I hope you use better discretion.
Representative Beerline moves to excuse absent members. Being no objection, the motion prevails by unanimous consent. There being no further business before the committee, the Oversight Committee will stand adjourned.